guest speaker for this winter's meeting is Sheila Metcalf. And Sheila is a weaver, she's a fiber artist, and she's also a longtime guild member and also a past guild president. She lives on Lopez Island. She's lived there since 1999, and she's done extensive traveling, and her traveling has provided inspiration for her work. And so today, Sheila is going to share some of that travel and some of the beautiful things that have inspired her. So Sheila, I'll just hand it over to you, and I'll let you go. Sheila.
Okay, thank you, Jason. I just want to say, Jason surprised me and moved me into this path, this little journey that I went on with saying yes, which surprised me, but it's been really fun. And then also, Jason, I couldn't have done it without Jason helping me figure out how to operate the screen. And I hope I do it well this morning. He was a good teacher though. So here's what I wrote. What is beauty? How do we find it? Is it important? I have been following a quest for beauty my entire life. Early on, beauty meant order to me. When I was 9, I organized the woods near my house with trails and leafy rooms. I wove hundreds of potholders, pursued mathematics in school, and in my 30s and 40s, renovated a dozen houses with my husband. I think I have always been thread conscious, as Sheila Hicks has described herself. My mother, aunts, and grandmothers were all knitters and sewers. I made my own clothes beginning in high school. At age 10, my family moved to Japan for 3 years, and this immersion in a different culture changed me forever. At age 21, I became a flight attendant to see the world and retired 32 years later. Knitting led to spinning and finally to weaving classes just before moving to an old farm on Lopez Island in 1999. I already was buying fleeces from Sally Bill and losing myself happily in the wool shed at the August County Fair. Soon, I joined the Textile Guild, made fiber friends, and worked with great teachers, Judith McKenzie, Michelle Whiplinger, Deb Menz, Anita Mayer, and Joan Morris, to name a few. And I continued to travel with my husband, Ron, to Turkey, Laos, Burma, Cambodia, Vietnam, India, Sicily, Sri Lanka, and Japan. Rarely booking ahead, toting our backpacks and always adjusting to the surprises of independent travel, I absorbed design, color, sought out weavers, dyers, block printers, and embroiderers. I was enlivened. And I saw beauty everywhere. Vegetable markets, bright eyes and smiles, stencil designs on mud walls, the graceful Rabari women walking behind their camels, ancient stone temple spires, intricate silks, and rustic pottery. John O'Donohue writes, "In the experience of beauty, we awaken and surrender in the same act. Beauty brings a sense of completion and sureness. We can slip into beautiful with the same ease as we slip into the seamless embrace of water. Something ancient in us trusts this embrace will hold us." I continue to learn from traveling. Lesson 1, less is more. Important when packing a backpack for a 2-month trip. I seek radical simplicity. Lesson 2, I don't really know. After 13 trips to India, my Western and entitled ideas have been turned on their heads so many times, I am much less sure and much more curious. Lesson 3, wabi-sabi. This is a Japanese aesthetic that I turn to for guidance. It is a way of living that focuses on beauty within the imperfections of life and accepting peacefully the natural cycle of growth and decay. Wabi-sabi is a beauty of things imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is a beauty of things modest and humble. It is a beauty of things unconventional. Okay. Did I get that right, Jason?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Perhaps the most famous examples of wabi-sabi are coarse, simple bowls used in Japanese tea ceremony. This cup is mended with gold. Long being a fan of linen, I wear it on 16-hour flights. Now I sleep in forever wrinkled linen sheets. I also prefer to hand dye yarns so the colors have soft variegation called a brash. So in this carpet, you can see the lines of green showing the variation in the green dye. Wrinkled linen and uneven color both embody wabi-sabi to me. Is seeking beauty frivolous in these difficult times? John O'Donohue says, beauty meets the needs of our soul. He writes, there are secret sources of courage inside every heart. Yet courage needs to be awakened in us. The encounter with the beautiful can bring such awakening. Courage is a spark that can become the flame of hope, lighting new and exciting pathways in what seem to be dead, dark landscapes. And so I'll show you a few images from some of my travels. In 2004, Ron and I traveled to Burma. And I call it Burma because when you're there, they tell you that by saying the old name, you are not supporting the new government. So I don't say Myanmar, I call it Burma. And the iconic Shwedagon Pagoda you see here does not disappoint. Notice how small the people are on the bottom, you get the scale. Vehicles are dangerously and comically overloaded. Baskets to market. Note the basket on the woman's head on the back of this truck bus. An overloaded person. Graceful. Always elegant. A bright color surprise. At Inley Lake, we found floating gardens and skilled craftspeople. Our canoe paddler one day made us lotus flower necklaces. Enjoying the ride. We saw silk spinning, and weaving, and of course, items for sale. This woman is beginning to make lotus cloth. The lotus is a symbol of enlightenment in this Buddhist country. It is extremely difficult and time-consuming to make cloth from the lotus fiber. So until recently, lotus cloth could only be worn by privileged monks. And it just takes a very long time to pound, soak, split, and ply this fiber into something that can be reeled then. He's reeling the lotus fiber. And this is my lotus cloth scarf that I purchased that day. It's very soft. Treadling a loom. A sweet sewer. A monk adds color to the scene. And here I am in a horse cart, our transportation for the day. And clopping along to the next pagoda. And this is Bagan. It has to be one of my favorite places on earth. Thousands of Buddhist pagodas spread across the plains. We spent a week bicycling. And watching the sunrise and the sunset. And we hated to leave. In 2005, Cambodia, and of course, Angkor Wat. And now we are transported by a sweet young man with a zippy motorcycle. The designs in stone were captivating. I felt the vibe. The jungle wants to reclaim its territory. We visited a silk factory. This woman is reeling silk off the cocoons that are soaking in hot water. Vibrant colors. Love that fuchsia. And this is intricately tied silk. The red are weft threads that are, well, that are mapped out to be the width of the cloth. And then they are tied following that cartoon up on the paper. And it is just the most intricate manipulation to weave double ikat. And here are the weft threads on spindles in order. You have to keep everything in careful order to then weave into the cloth. And this is the finished, a stretch of finished silk, double ikat. Monks blend into the garden. And brighten the Phnom Penh riverfront. And a young girl improves my look. In Vietnam, farming and food are art. Well, unfortunately, the years of war pretty much destroyed the textile arts, I think. We didn't see much at all. A market scene. A boat of mangoes. A proud farmer. And this wonderful basket, I didn't want to buy a new one in the market because the old ones were had taken on such a fine color, and the use just made them more beautiful. This basket was actually full of yams when I bought it. Had to give the yams back. And sericulture, or silkworm farming, is a cottage industry in Vietnam. And most houses have cocoons in the rafters. The family feeds the worms mulberry leaves, and you can actually hear the collective chewing. In the factory, the silk is reeled off. And spun. You can see all the silk cocoons on the left on the shelves. Schoolgirls wear white odai, the national traditional dress. Such a graceful look. On the kind of the mid-coast of Vietnam, they have these basket boats. They're lined with a waterproof material, and they're just utterly beautiful. And the fishermen use them. And you can eat noodles all day long. To me, the people of India are the beauty. This is Calcutta, a rickshaw runner. He ran barefoot through the streets. And I love the creative way this man is wearing his lungi, his traditional skirt. It's got knots up the front of his fabrics. Flowers everywhere. Ready smiles. Loveliness. And I just wonder how this is going to work out, this narrow road. In Kerala, the traditional sari is white with the gold edge. And every day is dress up day. In a village in Orissa state, warping is accomplished in the road. You see the spindles on a homemade rack in the front, and he's winding his warp. Probably cotton. They weave a lot with cotton in Orissa. They do ikat. Lots of helpers. It's a very long warp, already dyed in an ikat design. And here are colorful ikat saris that have been sized and are drying on a log before market. Here I am shopping for a sari. This one is silk. And the whole village gathered around to watch me haggle. Color inspiration. And speaking of color, these women are moving dirt. They were delighted when I stopped to talk with them. She has that over her face to keep off the dust. And one offered for me to try to carry a pan. And as she began to place it on my head, I yelled in horror. It was neck-breakingly heavy. I just don't know how they would do it. They're laughing at me. Design everywhere. And no shortage of bling. This is Rajasthan. And I met Jabber in Bhuj, Gujarat. I looked him up. Joan Morris had given me his contact information. And he hires village women to tie the tiniest of knots in silk in elaborate designs. That cloth on my lap are his tied designs. And then he and his brother dye them in aniline and or natural dyes. And he gave me a little demo on his little dye patio there. And then I loaded my bag with his colorful shawls and scarves. You can see how tiny knots they tie. Another family business in Gujarat, near the Kutch Desert, they make block print cloth using natural dyes. And here they are at the well washing their fabrics after dyeing and before dyeing the white. Coming out of the indigo pot, that beautiful green will oxidize to blue. Madder, iron, turmeric, indigo, in many, many dips and stampings result in intricate designs. The Rabari people are desert nomads who herd sheep and keep camels, and the women do fine embroidery. The men wear white. And the women wear black. This man is popping the threads, the tie threads from cotton bandhani cloth. More resist dyeing. He has bleached and hennaed his hair to show that he has been to Mecca. In Varanasi, the evening fire ceremony on the Ganges River is spectacular and lush. Ron and I have been traveling to Kerala for yoga and retreat for 10 years. Kamaraj was our first yoga teacher. Japan deals out beauty extravagantly. This is a small shrine dedicated to children. Beauty can be elaborate, these geisha in Kyoto, or simple. In Japan, nature soothes with resplendent gardens. A thatched gate. An elegant entrance. D.T. Suzuki's Zen Garden. a natural scene. Moss. A garden path using roof tiles on edge. Beautiful moss. A fence and shadows. Fushimi Inari Shrine. And food, definitely an art experience in Japan. Simply a cookie and tea. And a bowl of soup. Here I am in Kyoto with Kay in her lovely gallery, where she sells antique textiles and boro. Boro textiles have been mended and patched and have become quite dear. I purchased the 100-year-old hemp coat that I'm wearing. Silk on spindles. Mulberry paper stencils. Lanterns. A garden fence. And lovely noren, door curtains. I had the pleasure of running into a Shibori World Network exhibit at Kaiosan, a mountain pilgrimage site that we went to, and just saw beautiful, beautiful resist designs. Variations I had could never imagine. And this is indigo and gold leaf embellished cloth. At Naoshima, the art island, there were awesome surprises. Here, crystals are fixed to the walls of a curving hallway. It created watery sparkle. A simple altar shoes for the garden, a Shinto priest. So next, I'd like to show you some samples of what I've been making for the last 20 plus years. And dyeing yarns for weaving has been very important to my process. Here I used Lanicet dyes. And making garments has become a focus for me. I like to make loom-shaped designs like this panchita. Here an alpaca ruana. And a poncho. Simple jacket designs. This is rayon chenille mostly. This is a lot of hand-dyed cotton and silk and rayon, I think. I like to embellish with surface design techniques, shibori and hand stitching. This hand-woven tunic is painted with natural dyes and then stenciled. This piece is hand-woven and then stitched, cinched up, and instead of immersion dyeing, as you might with most shibori, I painted thickened dyes on the raised edges of the stitched shibori to get those designs. The same technique was used for this coat. On this tunic, I used stitch resist shibori to get the designs around the hem and on the sleeve cuffs, rust imprinting, stenciling, and kanta stitching. The lapel of this vest has rust imprints and was dyed in onion skins. This tunic was accordion pleated, the bottom, and tied with 2 planks of masonite, and then immersion dyed in onion skin bath. Oops. This is Arimatsu shibori using a peach leaf bath and then an indigo dye bath. And this is clamp shibori. These marks were made with rubber bands around rocks. This vest is rag woven with torn silk strips, a method called sakiori in Japan. And the fabric has a really beautiful hand. Most recently, I've made a series of tunics using hand-woven yardage with kimono silk trim. This piece is trimmed with vintage obi silk. An obi is a man's belt or a woman's belt. This was a man's belt. This is trimmed with ikat kimono silk. And kimono silk. In 2018, I showed a series of the shibori coats at Lopez Center. And watching me is my granddaughter, Ada. She's my favorite model. She's wearing a little poncho. And I'd like to end with words of Rumi. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Wonderful pictures.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
It was fun to review it.
Do we have any comments or questions? Carol Strum.
Carol.
Jason, are you seeing all the questions pop up in the chat?
Oh, no.
No, I haven't. I saw Carol raise her hand.
Oh, there. Can you hear me now?
I do, yes.
Okay, can you hear me, Sheila?
Yes, I can.
Take me with you. Take me with you next time, Sheila. Honestly, so incredibly inspiring, so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for enjoying it.
Absolutely.
And then Crispy had a question. How did you communicate when you were on these trips?
Well, India is easy because everyone learns English in school, unless you're with the tribal peoples. Language, I lived in Japan. I learned a little Japanese, and every country I go to, I try to learn a few basics, like, of course, please, thank you, how to order my beer, those kinds of important things. But I've never been very good at languages. Of course, I took French and Spanish in college, and it got me a little ways. But my communication method is very intuitive. It's a lot of signing, and it's amazing. It works so well. It works better than trying to find the right words. So I just bumble my way through, Jason.
That's cool. And that's the way to do it. My parents used to travel a lot, and they didn't know any of the language, and they would just point and everything was fine.
Yeah.
Robin asks, do you do your own stitching on the garments?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
You mean hand stitching, Robin? Hi. But all this, well, I do some machine stitching, of course, on some things, but I really prefer handwork. So a lot of the stitching that I could do with the machine, I do by hand anyway.
So I was thinking about like the garments that you showed there at the end, stitching the silk onto the woven fabric. Is that by machine, and do you do that yourself?
No, it's hand stitching, and I do everything myself.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to organize a workshop. I mean, you know, helpers or anything. So I just do what I do.
It gives you a lot of variety.
Well, the variety's fun. Yeah.
Oh.
Try new things. Yeah, you know.
And then Jan asks, tell us about your COVID year in relation to your artwork, and have you been able to continue work, and have you had to cancel any shows or exhibitions or anything like that?
Well, I canceled the studio tour, of course. That's like my big exposure these days, because I'm not in any shops, and no, didn't have any. Well, yes, I guess I would have had a little spring show at the Lopez Center, which was canceled as well. Didn't have one. And I have worked, I have been working in my studio, but I've talked to a lot of my creative friends, and we all feel a little bit dulled down. I think that's kind of, so what I've done is I did decide that I want to go in a new direction, and Jason's been a lot of help with that. I've really been emailing him a lot because I want to weave some rugs. So I have a loom that I've dedicated to rugs, and I'm just getting the warp on, learning how to sectional warp. So it's a whole new learning experience, and that's good to be engaged in that way during this time, I think, is to learn something new. The other thing I've started this month was a Meiwa natural dyes class. I've always wanted to go up to Vancouver and take that class, but it's a week long, and it would just be really expensive to do. So I never did it, but now they're offering it online. And so I'm just started into the color adding portion of the class, and it's exciting. And gosh, lots of people in the class. I mean, they really are reaching out all around the world since they're online. It's really neat. Thank you, Jan.
Laura Evans, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, Laura.
Is Laura still with us?
There I am. Sorry, my internet's a little unstable, so I had to turn my video. I tried turning my video off. Sheila, I was wondering if you would, maybe talk some more about the ways that your travels have informed your own personal work.
Well, in Japan, one of the things I love to do is go to the temple markets in Kyoto, where they have piles of old vintage and new textiles on tables for very inexpensive. And you see artists there recreating garments out of these old fabrics. So I get to see what the local artists are doing, beautiful things. And I've indulged myself, bought a few things there. I lug home bags and bags of the kimono. And like this last, starting, I guess, last spring, I have been using the kimono silk, beautiful, these are beautiful, beautiful things. They're dyed in ikat, some of them are hand painted. I especially seek out the vintage fibers because I think they're even more beautiful, but even the new ones are well made and fine. And so I've been combining them with my hand woven to make some garments. Mostly, I started with mostly sleeveless tunics, like you saw, you know, a kimono collar, but sleeveless. And now I'm making some with sleeves. But then inside, I put a lot of this silk. So inside has the surprise of color. So that's one way that I can think of. Yeah, and then seeing in Japan, also seeing all the shibori, the resist designs, but resist designs are done everywhere. I mean, as you saw in India, they call it bandhani, or well, bandhani is I guess the main word. And you see it everywhere. Every country seems to have these methods. Somehow they have traveled around the world, and they all do them a little differently.
Cool. Jen Chamberlain, I saw you raising your hand.
Yes, hi Sheila, this is Jan from Shaw. I just wanted to say, one, your photographs and everything were beautiful, but I'm so impressed at what you've done. I think I got to know you when you were just beginning to weave and dye and spin, and to see your progress, it's phenomenal, and your work is just beautiful. And so I just wanted to encourage you and to tell you how much I appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, Jan. You've been one of my teachers.
Oh,
You know, I've asked you, I remember asking you some real basic questions when I was just beginning. Yeah.
Hannah Bain, did you have a question?
I just wanted to make a comment, and that's that your garments are so elegant, and so there's just the plain beauty of them. And I just want to say it's outstanding, because a lot of the time I look at hand-woven garments and they're stiff and ugly to me, but your work is it's just really beautiful. So thank you.
Oh, Hannah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Softness and drape are extremely important to me. Even the ruanas and the wool, even when I use all wool and make a ruana or a poncho, it's so important that the fabric be pliable and soft and have movement, not stiff. And
yeah, it's inspiring what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Did we have any other questions or comments? I see some clapping. I see some more clapping. Yes, well, thank you so much, Sheila. That was, I've had the privilege of seeing your presentation twice now, so I feel extra blessed. So thank you so much, Sheila. That was really wonderful and very inspiring too. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for asking me, Jason.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. Okay, so let's move on to the slightly less interesting part of our meeting. Let's go ahead and start our